How's it going, everyone? Doc here with Eyes Wide Shot Gaming, and today is Halloween, which means we have a spooky, bubbling, acidic rain build for you all. Stick around. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date on all of your Remnant 2 news, info, builds, and breakdowns, as well as many other games. It's October 31st. Most of us know it as Halloween, but to many others, it is also All Saints' Eve. So let's spread some good on this eerie, pious day with a wildly fun build we here call the Acidic Rain build. Let's dive right in with the archetypes we'll be using. For our primary archetype, we have the Ritualist. Since our build focuses heavily on elemental damage of the corrosive kind, we decided Ritualist's prime perk Vial was too good to give up with its infected aspect, allowing us to right off the bat do more status effect damage on enemies by 15%. We continue down the line to the damage perk Wrath, giving us and our team a 25% increase to damage against enemies affected by a negative status effect, as well as an increase to all critical chance against said enemies by 5%. For our skill associated with this haunting archetype, we have Miasma. This will be one of our 2 openers when engaging enemies to apply 4 different negative status effects that deal a total of just under 3,900 damage over 20 seconds in a 22.5 meter radius. That's our first stack of Corroded. For our secondary archetype, we have Invoker. We use Invoker's damage perk Entrance to increase our skill damage by 30%, elemental damage by 15%, and both of their critical chances by 5%. With it, the team perk Communion also reduces our skill cooldown by 1% and heals for 2% of max health while an Invoker skill is active every 3 seconds. The skill we went with is Way of Kayula. Although the over 1,000 elemental damage in a 45 meter radius is enticing, we were more so focused on the length of this skill, sitting at almost 22 seconds, which gives us a 7% skill cooldown, as well as strikes enemies with over 2,000 shock damage once they're drenched. Already, just with our skills, we have applied 4 different forms of elemental damage. Let's get on to our Amulet and Rings to see how to increase this damage. For the Amulet, we went with the Energized Neck Coil. This will increase status effect damage by 20%, and when we apply a damaging status effect, each enemy explodes in a 3 meter radius for 20% of its full damage every 5 seconds. So not only are we hitting them with elemental damage, but now we are also detonating them. Let's get down to the rings. Our first ring enhances our acid damage with the Acid Stone by 15%, and in the process, it also increases our acid resistance by 20%. The second ring we equip is the Alumni Ring. This will continue to increase all elemental damage dealt by 10% to continuously raise our ticks. For our third ring, we have the Shadow of Misery, another boost of 20% to status effect damage to yet again raise our tick damage against these enemies. And finally, the last ring is the Red Ring of Death. I'm sure our Xbox players shudder hearing those words, but in the case of this build, it duplicates the last damaging negative status applied to a target, but reduces outgoing status effect damage by 10%. This is our second stack of Corroded. Let's move on over to the weapons and tie this build all together. Our secondary is the Nebula. We fire a stream of super hot acid gas which applies Corroded to the enemies, dealing just shy of 4,200 damage over 30 seconds. This is our third stack of Corroded. The Nebula's mod is Nanoswarm, which allows us to unleash a swarm of nanomachines that home in on the enemy within 20 meters and attack, dealing 24.6 acid damage per hit, and apply Corroded, which deals 1,046 acid damage over 10 seconds. This is our fourth stack of Corroded. The mutator we have equipped is Fetid Wounds. We increased the critical chance of this weapon by 3% per unique negative status effect on the enemy, which as far as I can count is 12% thus far. And at level 10, this weapon's ranged weak spot and critical hits apply Corroded, dealing another 1,035 corrosive damage over 20 seconds. This is our fifth stack of Corroded. For the melee weapon, we went with the Huntress Spear for a nice, throwable melee weapon. Our charged melee attacks allow us to launch the spear, which applies corrosion, dealing 1609 acid damage over 10 seconds. This is our 6th stack of corroded. With it, the mutator we use is Tainted Blade. This will increase melee damage by 8% per stack of corroded on the target and a max of 5, giving us a boost of 40%. And at level 10, charged melee attacks apply corroded, dealing 3,450 acid damage over 20 seconds. This is our 7th stack of corroded. And finally, our primary. We have the Sparkfire Shotgun. We fire incendiary shells that apply burning, which deal 443 fire damage over 6 seconds. But the mod we equipped is Corrosive Rounds, which imbues these bullets with acid and increases our critical chance by 15%. The shots now apply corroded, dealing 2,070 damage over 20 seconds. This is our 8th stack of corroded. For the mutator, we went with Maelstrom. It will help us increase our weapon's elemental damage by 10% for each unique elemental status, which is a nice 40% boost, and at level 10 increases mod power generation of elemental damage and elemental status damage by 20%. As far as the build goes, we attack with 4 different elemental statuses on the enemies and have the acid stacking up to 8 times. Let's move on over to the rest of the build before going into the ward to see how it works. The Relic Heart we are using is once again Profane Heart for survivability from its innate 3% lifesteal bonus. On the left, we have our stats: health at 100, stamina at 100, and armor at 232.5. On the right, we have our traits, main focus being on Flashcaster, Spirit, Amplitude, and Chakra. Let's dive into our Fragments and Prism, with our main 3 fragments being status effect damage, obviously, skill cooldown, and mod damage. We can always swap skill cooldown for explosive damage if need be, depending on what we get in the Gauntlet for the perks. Now that we have put it all together, let's check this build out in the ward before our showcase of a solo boss rush with it. We activate our skills, our primary weapons mod, fire it to start stacking corrosion, and swap between the 3 weapons, firing off little by little to keep the stack of corrosion on the enemy. All together in the ward without any Gauntlet perks or any concoctions, we are dealing somewhere between the 2,000 and 3,000 DPS range. This build has been extremely fun to make and use, so hopefully it brings you as much joy as it brought us. And as always, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and until next time, so long.